Welcome to the Put on Waivers Media Group, home of the Put on Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
Hey, welcome everybody to another glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, and as always, I am podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle. And I just want to, I'll let my guest introduce herself. Basically, I wanted to have a forum for fans to kind of come on and just kind of spew what they want to, talk about on this with the Raiders. The Raiders are doing really well. I would have them, gleefully talk about the good things the Raiders are doing. But right now, as we both chuckle, right now, that's not the case. So I wanted to have somebody come on. I'll have my guest introduce herself, and then we'll kind of go forward.
I'm Liz, everyone. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Liz you can find Liz a lot in Twitter Spaces and on the X app as well too. And I've been to some Twitter Spaces and her just like passion for the Raiders, and also her breakdowns of what's going on, things that she just don't understand how they can be this incompetent. Made me kind of ask her to come on the show. So Northern California, I do want to. One thing I want to say about Northern California real quick is how much of even though the Raiders weren't good in Oakland for a long period of time, how much of that really, like how empty of a feeling is it to not have them there in Northern California?
I mean, it's always like an empty feeling when your team, like leaves for a different city. I mean, I'm like way up Northern California, so I'm quite a few ways away from Oakland, but it was like a hole that was kind of like left when the team left. Like obviously a lot of fans were based up in this area, from Southern California to Northern California. So for them to leave, it was definitely a bummer. Now you have to travel, you have to, either drive quite a ways or you have to get on a plane to get there. So that's definitely a bummer. And I think the fan base, obviously a lot more were going to games because it was more local and they didn't have to spend as much money, going out to Vegas.
Yeah, you could get a game ticket the same day.
Yeah.
With in Oakland now, you can't do it now. Been through a lot of different regimes, Gruden, Mayock, whatever. And this one, it seems like I didn't even realize that Josh McDaniels had he has a worse record through 24 games than he did in Denver. During that time period. What are your thoughts about McDaniels and the frustrations that fans feel about, where the direction of this team is headed?
Yeah, I mean, clearly we've seen like the product on the field, for the past year and a half with him as head coach. I just had a feeling once he was like named head coach, I just didn't think he was the guy for the job. I don't know who would have been the guy for the job. I just didn't think it was him. Again, like as Patriots have gone and like try to branch out and do their own thing with head coaching gigs, they just like haven't been a success. And with his stint in Denver, I mean, there was like a lot of stuff that went down. Obviously there's like hearsay and reports, and no one's ever going to truly know exactly what happened because players are going to talk about it. But like, you know what I mean? They're going to talk about it from their perspective, maybe not everyone else's perspective. But I just did not think he was the right hire from the get-go. And then to kind of see how everything's unfolded the first season, with some of the transactions that have been made. And then now into the second season, our offense is like worse, which is like crazy to me because, he went out and supposedly got his guy in Jimmy Garoppolo. And I mean, we're just seeing obviously what's being put on the field. So it's just very concerning as like a viewer and a fan of the team that like this is the direction that the team is going and that there's like any way that he can continue being the head coach of the Raiders.
Yeah, it seems like it's a lot. And I think I wonder in my head, I'm saying to myself, like, who are they competing with to get Josh McDaniels? It seems like it was nobody else they were competing with. So like I'm not sure what it seems like the owner really loves the Patriots and the Patriot way, stuff like that. You see Tom Brady come in there as well. How much do you feel like this is on Mr. Davis? Mark is, talked about he doesn't, know a lot about football and other things like that, but there's a situation here where like again, like he is kind of married to a coach who is coaching stuff from the past, as opposed to what's going on right now in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it all has to fall on Mark Davis. I mean, he's the owner of the team. He is the guy at the head of the ship. Like, yes, he doesn't meddle in like the football side of things, but like he's the guy that has to make those decisions to get a head coach, to get a general manager. So, I mean, this completely falls on his shoulders, and he has to take responsibility. He has to take accountability for doing that job. So, if he can't properly hire coaches like we've kind of seen him not be able to do since he's taken over for his father, I mean, then he needs to maybe get different people in that can kind of help him kind of make those decisions, because eventually he's going to have to look at himself in the mirror and say, okay, like this, none of this has been working. What am I doing? What do I need to do differently? Like he needs to change the way he's doing things in order to get
Mhm.
this team in the right direction, the right direction. If he's not willing to do that, then I mean, we're in for a really long haul with this team, and it's not going to get better anytime soon.
How do you feel? I know some Raider fans are mixed about the involvement of Tom Brady in this. It seems like Tom Brady's trying to get that 70% discount. I mean, the little hookup to get a little bit of ownership of the Raiders. What do you feel about his involvement here? I think it sounds like that might be his right hand man as far as any football questions.
I mean, if it's if it turns into good football and winning football, I really don't care at the end of the day. Like who's the owner,
Yeah.
who's part of the ownership, like I don't care. I mean, if Tom Brady is like truly his right hand man, then I mean Tom Brady should be in his ear telling him that, these people are not the right people running your team. I mean, like I said, we're seeing the product on the field with how the offense is running. I mean, we're not producing on the offensive side of the ball. So, I mean, if you're looking at this as like a football person, especially Tom Brady, who's the greatest to probably ever play, you have to be like, okay, clearly, like this isn't just solely on the players. Like the coach has to take the blame too. So, I mean, if he is an part of the ownership and we start winning, I could care less. I mean, it is what it is. I'm tired of like Patriots and all that stuff, like players, coaches, like whatever it is. Like I'm tired of it. Like get rid of it. It's not working clearly. But I mean, if Tom, I don't think he's going to be able to make decisions because he's not going to have a huge ownership stake anyways. But I mean, he could still
Yeah.
kind of tell Mark Davis like, hey, this is what maybe I would do, or you know what I mean? And Mark Davis could take his advice. But yeah, at the end of the day, I really don't care who's running the team is if it's resulting in winning.
GMs are like, kind of like gold. We have a good one. Um, they should have probably, if JMD gets fired, they should probably, your feelings about like maybe like they should get away from the best friend situation with Mike Mayock and Dave Ziegler. They kind of went back to back on that, and then maybe it's a good idea to just get a GM and have the GM make these decisions for head coach.
Yeah, I mean, it's all like cool and whatever, like, oh, have your best friend at work. Like that's awesome. But it's a business at the end of the day. Like you
Yeah.
have to, when you're hired for a job, especially the job that they're in, they are like such powerful people. I mean, you have to put your friendship aside and you have to say, okay, what's best for business? Like that's what it comes down to. The NFL is a business, professional sports is a business. You have to do what's best for the team that you're running or a part of or whatever. So they need to get away with that. I mean, if you know, I don't understand the point of like having a general manager if your coach is like making the decisions anyways, kind of like
Yeah.
John Gruden was making the decisions over, Mayock. It's like, what's the point of even having a general manager then if that's the case? Like, that's just a weird thing. So it would just be better if we could have a general manager who comes in, is a strictly a general manager, and then have a coach that comes in and strictly a head coach. Like, of course, they can have some input with like drafting and things like that. But at the end of the day, the general manager has to be the one to make the final decision on drafting, on free agents, whatever it is, and then let the coach be the coach. Like, there should not be, the coach making the final decision on all of this stuff. It's just a weird structure of things. Like, there'd be no point of having a general manager in that case.
Yeah. It seems to be working in Philadelphia. It seems like we're working in Detroit. Having a GM and having a head coach. I mean, you have a situation where Mayock was never going to fire Gruden, and Ziegler's never going to fire himself. Never going to fire Josh McDaniels. On the lighter side, it's a mess. We know right now they're currently in a bad spot. Your favorite Raider of all time, and your
Oh
last name.
God, I would have to say it's definitely a toss up between Charles Woodson,
Okay.
and then I would have to say Tim Brown. I think those are
Okay.
like my all two like time favorite Raiders. I mean, I like started watching the Raiders because my stepdad was a fan. Like all of my family's 49ers fans because they grew up in the Bay Area. But
Yeah.
I like went to the dark side and I was like, I'm gonna be a Raider fan. But just like I started watching basically when like Charles got drafted to the team, and
Mhm.
then just like watching, like Chucky when John Gruden was there in his first stint. Like as a kid, you love that because it's just like, like just bad foot like bad football, not like bad football, but you know what I mean? Like bad guy football. Like everyone's
Yeah,
kind of like painted
badass.
as the
Yeah,
bad guy. Like,
yeah.
so yeah, it was just so much fun. So definitely those two, Charles Woodson and Tim Brown, are probably my all-time favorites.
And do you have a favorite moment? Um, um, watching them growing up.
Oh God. I mean,
I think
definitely I want to say that Tennessee Titan playoff game where
it
we
was sick
like yeah, we absolutely just like whooped their butt. I mean, that
when the
was an
Raiders
awesome.
when the Raiders actually scored points.
Exactly. Yeah, when our offense was actually like worthy of scoring points and could move the ball and pass, and it
Yeah.
was just awesome to see like Gannon with his career, like how he kind of like his path, he was a backup, he wasn't like that guy, and then he came to the Raiders. And I mean, John Gruden really had a part in making Rich Gannon who he was, and like had his
Mhm.
MVP year. So that part was just so much fun to watch, like him do that. And then, of course, like, having to watch the god awful Super Bowl. But
Yes, exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
at
And the
least
whole
I got to watch my team in a Super Bowl, but it just, yeah,
yeah,
it's like
it
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 had to
was
go that
tough.
way.
Yeah, I mean, that moment was cool because it was that moment where I mean, you could see Tim Brown holding that AFC conference championship trophy, and you could see him like almost breaking down because of
Yeah.
all like so that was a cool moment as well. So, all right, cool. Thank you for joining us here on the Put on Raiders podcast. A little fan segment here for everybody. So, you can see Liz on catch Liz on Twitter. You can see her on Raiders Spaces and some other football spaces as well. So I definitely appreciate you giving us some time here. And it might if it means, and I'm trying to keep it if it means Caleb, if it means Drake May, if it means JJ McCarthy, maybe all this will be worth it at the end of the day. And it also means Josh McDaniels is not here anymore. Maybe it's worth it to go through this season.
Yeah, I'll never root for my team to actively lose, but I mean, in order for us to like turn the ship, I think that's the direction they have to kind of go. But it starts at the top with Mark Davis, and then it has to work its way down and getting rid of this current regimen, and then, going from there and getting the right guys to currently turn the ship around.
Cool. All right, Elizabeth, have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Good.